On. Kathy, you're on.
I'm on, thank you.
Good morning. It's Monday, December 14th. This is the Tufton Borough Selectmen's meeting here at the Townhouse. It's 9 o'clock. Clay, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good morning to everybody. The first few minutes will be public input. Anyone from the public want to speak?
I do, but if you're in a hurry, you can go first. Thank you.
Just give your name to the secretary.
Yes, Marilyn Stacy. And it shouldn't take too long. I will briefly explain why I'm here and then briefly explain the information I want to give to you. This one's for Chip. This one's for Lou.
Thank you.
And this one is for Bill. And Bill gets an entire copy of the Water Well Board rules because he's on the planning board.
Okay.
And that's mine. All right, I said the name. And as you know, I live at the North Country Village Cooperative Mobile Home Park in Tufton Borough. And I appreciate the encouragement and supportive response I received at the October 19th Select Board meeting I attended concerning the alternate plan I developed for the water system. I just thought before I began, doesn't matter to me if I win or lose. I have learned an awful lot of information from research I've done that I'm following through. I have additional information to share with you, which I just gave to you, and I will explain why I'm here briefly and then briefly explain the information. This information led to further detail of my plan and led to develop two town warrant articles. And I'm here to hear your input on these warrants. Not all my signers were registered voters. That was my mistake. I didn't ask them because I just thought they had to be residents. And on December 9, when the first warrant was due, because it was involved zoning, it was short 7 voters, and Kathy Pounder explained it was a planning issue, and she recommended an appointment to discuss this with them. And I did telephone Lynn Henderson, the secretary, and she will let me know this week which of the 2 meetings that they have before the March town meeting I can attend, to discuss it with them. The second warrant has until February 2nd and could be submitted when I find 9 more voters to sign. I am seeking with the Selectmen today how to refine the warrants with any advice you have on how best to proceed with them. And it is my hope this meeting will provide Selectman Bill Markison with a helpful preview of my presentation to the planning board so that I can benefit from any suggestions he can offer to me. It is my goal to address any questions or concerns with my warrant ideas so that everyone in the town of Tufton Borough will effectively benefit from the results. Okay, the information is for 2 warrants. And also is included is the first warrant discusses a law and the water well rules. I learned about this law and the rules when I had a conversation on the phone with an engineer named John Swain from Capital Well Company in Dunbarton. And I'm also including, for your reference, how the town of Dunbarton dealt with this new law and well rules. And then there is a letter that I sent to DES and the commissioner that hasn't been answered yet. That's just so that you're up to date with what's going on with this project. I believe I should explain more about this law as it applies to the first warrant article, which says this warrant article will adjust the 75-foot setback rule according to the RSA 2019 New Hampshire Revised Statutes, Title L, Waste Management and Protection, Chapter 485-A, Water Pollution and Waste Disposal, Section 485-A, 30B, Protected Well Radii, which includes the new water well rules that were effective March 1, 2017. An algorithm is acceptable that can reduce the setback to 50 feet or less. But based on this adjustment, the town can also reduce their zoning to 1/4 of an acre or more for buildings. Okay, so this law that you can see, when you look through it, you'd never know it had anything to do with reducing the setback rule, except for 2 words, and that's recorded easement. And towards the end of the page, there's a sentence, where I've got little asterisks on it, and it says, subject to the foregoing sentence, the protective well radius shall be maintained on one or more of the following, and it mentions recorded easement, etc. So recorded easement is mentioned in the water well rules, and on page 8 it mentions the RSA 485A 30B, and number 2 it says, on a recorded easement, including cross easements to facilitate overlapping well radii. So in other words, recorded easement includes the cross easement. And then on page 18, this document is fabulous. It explains everything, diagrams and everything. On page 18, it said the minimum casing length when the setbacks are not met, and it shows a triangle, and at the top of the triangle is your horizontal line, which usually, and everybody in the United States thinks that's the line, which is the horizontal line from, they call it the EDA. The EDA is the leach field.
Excuse me, Marilyn.
Mm-hmm.
You've gone for 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Could I
I was just explaining this.
Yeah,
that's
out of
all.
courtey, could I ask you wrap up in the next 2 minutes, because we have other
Yes,
people
yes.
waiting. Thank you for your
Yes.
understanding, you've always been cool that way.
Okay. Okay, so in other words, the triangle, you use the cross easement, goes to 75 feet instead of at the top. So that explains, this is for real. I mean, and then they passed a law on it, and a town, I gave an example of a town that is doing this. So I just want to know if you can help me and how this could affect the town of Tuftonboro with knowing that for real, the setback rule of 75 feet can be 50 feet or less. Okay, I don't know, get your reaction.
Well, they can be
Any questions or comments from the board?
50, well, a couple comments. They could be 50 feet or less, but that's subject to the abutting property owner allowing the easement. So you don't automatically get that easement, you have to negotiate for that easement. Secondly, this is a pretty extensive search into what Maryland feels is a problem. But I don't think that this is a warrant article that we can entertain for 2021, because the planning board hasn't had an opportunity to look at it. The health officer hasn't had a chance to look at it. And for all intents and purposes, we haven't had a chance to look at it. So I think if we're going to go down this road, I'd be cautious where it mentions quarter-acre zoning, that might bring on failure at the town meeting, because there's not a lot of appetite for quarter-acre zoning here in Tuftonboro. But that being said, I think before we entertain taking it on as a warrant article, I mean, Maryland can bring it forward as a petition warrant article. I don't see any hope of it passing in that format. But if what she really wants to do is have the planning board address what she feels is an issue, then that's a longer term process.
I think you're exactly right there. So changes to zoning go through the planning board as you've been told. And the planning board is having a hearing on zoning changes for this year at our first meeting in January. So before any zoning change goes to the hearing, it has to go through the planning board and be voted on by the planning board to move to hearing. Now, we have some that we're working on this year that are scheduled to go to hearing, that we've been working with for a number of months. I mean, typically what happens is an idea comes forward, it comes to the planning board, it's on the floor for discussion, there are questions that come up, we're looking for input, the planning board is, from the Board of Selectmen, from the code officer, from other involved officials, as well as members of the public. So practically, at this late date, there's one planning board meeting between now and the hearing, which is this Thursday. And the likelihood that you could have something in a form that would be looked at by the planning board, understood and accepted. This is a very complex issue, as you know.
Yes.
And move to hearing, I think, is very, very low. I'll second what Chip said, which is, if you're serious about the process, unfortunately the process, it doesn't move real quickly, but it's important to get engaged early in your process with everybody that can provide, help everybody have a real understanding of what's going on. You're certainly, anybody is can bring a petition article to the warrant, and
And we are required by law to put it on the warrant as it's written and presented. That's not the same as saying that it's going to be understood and embraced by town meeting. And quite honestly, my understanding is, and I'm not an expert on it, that anything that relates to zoning, if it were presented on a petition article at town meeting, would be advisory, because the zoning changes go through the ballot process rather than town meeting. I don't know that for sure, but that's my understanding of how that works. So,
And she did miss the
have you had any conversations with the code officer on this?
Not on this particular issue, but the wells, you know, he told me that the wells would be like $10,000.
Yeah, I guess in practical terms, you need to convince, I'm just gonna put the number 5 members, or educate 5 members of the planning board to the same extent that
That's
you're
right.
educated, so that they can make a decision
Mhm.
to bring it forward onto the ballot. They're a better advocate for this than you are with a petition warrant article, for any number of reasons, but that's their job. And
Yes.
if they bring it forward because they think it's the thing to do,
Mhm.
it's far more likely to pass,
Mhm.
because they've spent a lot of time at it and they're diverse members of our citizenry.
Well, it also relates to the temper of the times. I heard a radio show of realtors, and they say that many people who own homes in urban areas, because of the violence going on in the larger cities, are selling their homes and moving to rural areas, and they want to buy or build a home there. And what I'm seeing as this has unfolded, I'm coming from the research angle and not the implementing angle. I'm learning about that part, you know, at the end and instead of the
Excuse me,
beginning.
Marilyn,
Mm.
we've now gone another 5
Oh,
minutes,
okay.
and I think we're all wandering from
Oh,
the
okay.
topic here.
All right, well, then the other thing was the second warrant may, I will probably get the signatures, and it relates to the first one, and that would be like implementing what I'm talking about, and that also implies that the town would purchase the cooperative property, and then each home.
The town would purchase it?
Right,
Okay, so now you're talking about a money warrant article.
yeah, but it
So
has, the reason it happened is because of one, the first one, right? Because that means then that the people could buy the
And
land
not to-
around their
not to get-
home and do what we were
Not to get
discussing.
my chairman upset,
Mm.
but when you're talking a money warrant article,
Yeah,
now we have to have some public hearings involved. I mean, that becomes a budgetary item that
yeah.
has to go through the budget committee.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying yes or no to your motives
Right.
or your plan, but you've run out of time for 2021.
Yeah.
Because you won't have time enough to bring that forward and get it done for the 2021 town meeting. So I'm not trying to.
Unless it gets to be on a warrant article.
Well, and
Yeah,
if you present a petition article,
we're going with
then
that.
it will go on
Yeah.
the warrant.
Yeah,
But let me just say, with respect to the idea of the town purchasing
mhm,
the park, and I think we've had this, you and I have had this conversation before. I personally can't envision a situation where the town would embrace that concept unless the vast majority of people living there came to the town and there was a good reason for it. In other words, you're saying you want the town to buy it, but
mhm, mhm. I know.
the only way the town can do it without the seller being agreeable is by eminent domain, and I don't see that happening. So,
Well, just to
So
finish up.
I think, why don't we just leave it there for now? We have gone on for 20-some minutes.
Yes, I understand that, and I just want to say that it also stretches into the legal area. I am in the process of changing attorneys, and also I talked with the AG's office, and, just to capsulize, what's going on with me, with you, with the town. I was told by the Attorney General's office that the town could sue Northampton for the illegalities that are going on.
Excuse me, do you have a copy for Kathy so she can put it in the record?
Anybody can sue.
Probably I just said it verbally.
Okay.
That was a conversation I had with the Attorney General's office.
Thank you.
So in other words, there's an awful lot going on
Sure.
legally as well. In other words, breaking laws all over the place. And so now you have been informed of the laws.
All right,
Okay.
yes.
And please bring it up at the Thursday meeting.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Next item on the business is to review and approve of the minutes. The first set of minutes are the Board of Selectmen minutes for 12/7/20.
I'll move approval.
And I'll second.
Before we do, I have a couple of corrections.
Okay.
Basically, technical things. Please go to page 3. The first paragraph says Selectman Markison. And if you go to the third sentence, it says it should be a different consultant will be hired to complete the master plan. The cost will be in the $8,000 to $10,000 range.
So a dollar
So
sign
it's
before
a
the-
dollar sign and consultant. Just very technical changes. Any other changes, gentlemen? All those in favor of the changes, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. The next is the non-public minutes of 12/7/2020. I have nothing.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, and they stay sealed. Thank you. Next is our appointments. Clay Gallagher from the transfer station. Clay, thank you for waiting. How are you?
Good, how about you?
I eat pretty good.
You want to review this, that they can decide if they want.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
Start with the department update. It's better when the meetings come around this time frame, because then I can have the numbers filled in, and it's a little more of an accurate statement for November. I have a waste management totals in, so. For November we had 11 solid waste compactors, 11 CD containers, 3 plastic containers. We shipped out, or had oil pickup, 270 gallons. We had a 15-yard container of steel and tin cans picked up. 2 trailer loads of scrap metal, 16.78 tons. 2 loads of brush, 28 Freon units, 32 propane units. The revenues through 2020 are 73,831. Same time last year was 113,430, which is about the same as it's been all along. It's a little bit more of a gap, but that's understandable because last year was a sticker year, and this year is the second year of a sticker year, so we're not selling any stickers. As far as previous meetings, you asked me what I expected the revenue to be, and I said somewhere between 70 and 75,000. Right now, we're at 78,500 for revenue so far. So I expect that we will exceed 80,000, maybe $82,000 in revenue, somewhere around that ballpark. So a little bit higher than what I thought. Give you a general idea of what the revenue should be for the end of the year. General info items we're clearing out as much as possible. I had the brush pile deleted yesterday. That'll be the last brush pickup. I talked to Lance, and he was going to shut down a little bit earlier, but he held off a little bit and picked up the last shipment. So we won't have any more brush pickups until probably springtime, early spring. We're going to get rid of another tire container, electronics container. We'll get the Freon propane emptied out. So the station looks pretty good. It's ready for more snow. So we won't have safety incidents around the metal pile and that kind of stuff. And we'll be able to clear out. We've already had one practice pile out that worked out real well. We had to wait a little bit for sand and salt, but that's understandable. First go around, it would be a little better on the next ones. All the annual servicing is done on all the machines. We had a little bit of an issue with a battery problem on the Bobcat. I had them come up on Friday. We replaced the battery. It's 4.5 years old. And the way we operate the machine is not like most construction outfits operate the machine. We turn it on, start it, drive over to the baler, pick up the bale, take it out, put it in the storage container, weigh it, put it in the storage container, come back in, put the machine in and turn it off. So
Your hours of use in a year are a lot less than
a
normal.
lot less, and consequently the charging of the battery through the alternator. Those machines are designed to be run a little bit more. In the wintertime, when we're plowing snow, then the batteries get charged up. So they checked it. I specifically, because we had it serviced a month and a half, 2 months ago, the annual servicing. And I wanted to make sure they had a software change, and I wanted to make sure there was nothing that was drawing on the battery when the key was off from the software change. And he had left it not the same as we had it. And so the indicators on the instrument panel, when you go to start it up, are different than what we had before. We used to have a countdown when the glow plug gets power to it, then there's a countdown before you start it. And they didn't have that anymore. It was just the word cool. What does that mean? So with the software change, that we wanted it to change back to what it was. So we got the indications changed. The software update was good. No drain on the battery. So long story short, batteries replacement.
So does it make sense to put a trickle charger on that thing?
We have not had to do that, but we have one, and we did that to start it back up when we had a problem. We do have a plug-in in the back, and we plugged it in and charged the battery with a trickle charger.
My brother has a Bobcat, and it says to leave it running 20 minutes.
Yeah, and that's what we're gonna do.
And I know when I had a Volkswagen Rabbit, it said exactly what you talked about. Don't drive to the store, turn it off,
Right.
drive back home, make sure you run it for 20 consecutive minutes.
Right, and a lot of times too, when we do it very short, we don't push the throttle up. We don't throttle the machine up to a reasonable RPM. It's a little more awareness on our part with a new machine and the battery, a fairly new machine, so.
But you also have a good set of operators.
Yeah, we do, and I think we got it squared away now, and all of us are aware of it, so. That's done. The budget's done, budget committee's done. The only thing we do not have done is the buildings, the buildings, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but my well, we'll talk about that later when we're all ready to do that. The landfill monitoring contract, I've already talked to Stantec, trying to make sure we get the billing for all the work prior to the end of the year, and get the invoice in so we don't straddle the budget years. So we might as well talk about it. Do you want to, are you going to do all the buildings and grounds at the same time, or how do you want to do that?
Well, we have the government buildings budget. We haven't done that because Jack hasn't gotten all of his quotes in.
Okay.
That's the last major budget we have.
Okay, my recommendation to that for the transfer station one, because we did the transfer station budget, and at the time I brought up the issue with contracting mowing for the transfer station, not the landfill. We have a budget line in there for that. I had put that money in there, and we took it out in our discussions on the budget. I think that should go in the transfer station maintenance outside.
So you've overspent that line right now by $2,000.
No,
So
on the mowing line?
on this, I'm sorry, that's fire department. I apologize.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, the mowing line I overspent a little bit because we had mowed twice the landfill. This is a new contract
It's the lawn adjacent to the building.
correct. Right.
Jack had contacted Corey and he's giving us a quote to include that in all his other town law.
Yeah, so wherever that line is, I had a discussion with Diane, and she said, no, it's listed under separate departments. And that's not the discussion we had when we did the budget.
No.
So you guys will take care of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Provided we remember.
And that, the quote was, I think, 3,000 was what he quoted.
So, all right, let me get this straight. You want to change the solid waste disposal budget to include the mowing? It has a mowing line.
No, I don't want to change the transfer station budget at all.
Okay.
That was
So
the
you
one
want to
buildings
go
and
back to the
ground.
buildings budget.
There's two separate mowings, Chip. One is
I'm not seeing a mowing line in the buildings budget.
one of them is the cover over the landfill,
Yeah.
the field. He's talking about the lawn
Yeah, it's new. That's new.
adjacent to the buildings.
Okay.
Then there'll be a new budget line.
Wait, so you want a new line on the building budget?
That's what Diane had recommended.
Okay, so we need to,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay. Because there's no mowing line there now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And we're gonna include chip,
And I don't want to screw with the transfer station budget, that's already done and complete, so.
well, I think the question the budget committee's gonna throw at me is gonna be, well, we've got a mowing line and the transfer station budget, and now you want another mowing line in the buildings budget.
Two separate issues.
It's
One
two-
is the landfill,
It's two different types of equipment.
yeah.
One is a
the-
tractor with a tow, a big mower
Okay.
behind it.
The mowing in the transfer station budget is for what?
That's for the landfill.
The
Okay,
capped
that's the
landfill.
And you're looking for beautification of the
Correct,
grounds.
because,
All
yeah.
right, got it.
But,
I'm good.
um,
It's easy.
I'm working with DES and, on fire extinguishers. The issue was brought up about us taking fire extinguishers. Laura Pushy is, the, DES representative in contact with Kerry. I'm waiting, again, for discussions with NRA. It lists that we have to have active management of fire extinguishers that we take. I want to know what active management of
Yeah.
fire extinguishers means, so
You-
I'm working on it.
When you showed that to me, you gave me a copy, and with your permission, I put a phone call in. I
Right.
haven't had the courtesy of a return phone call.
So does the fire department currently have an active management?
Yeah, we don't.
All they do is put them on a shelf and call someone to come get them.
So maybe that's all the actions needed.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It lists a bunch of things you have to do. One, we have to change our permit to allow us to accept fire extinguishers. And then we have to have an active management program of it, which.
I asked the question, what's an active management program? And no one in that office knew what I was talking about.
Well, you probably have to have policies and procedures.
Yes.
Right. So I'm gonna talk with Bonnie at NRA and find out what her knowledge of it is and go from there. So,
Yeah, when somebody says active management, to me, what comes to mind is you keep an inventory, somebody brings one, you check it in, it's kept in an area separate from the general stuff, so that.
Well, for us, it's like semi-hazardous waste,
Yeah,
lead acid batteries.
right.
That requires an active management program. We palletize it, we have a roof over it. If it's kept outside, it's gotta be undercover, et cetera, et cetera. So there's certain things
It's
required.
not just sitting there for 100 years.
Yes,
Right.
right. So I just wanted to let you know I'm working on that. I've coordinated with Dennis from Parks and Recs on a storage container that's being delivered tomorrow. I called him and I put out 2 or 3 locations where we could put it, but I didn't want to make that decision. I wanted to call him and get his druthers was where we put it. And he came up on Saturday. We looked at the site. It's going to be delivered tomorrow. Sometime tomorrow, I'm going to be on the phone right after the meeting with them and get the time. And he's going to go purchase some 4x4 pressure treated that we can shim underneath to make sure that it's.
I looked at that site yesterday. You're confident that you can get all around all 4 corners with your backhoe? Because it looked like there were.
No, we get from the back and we can get from the front.
So you go around and get from the back?
Yes. Yep. Come around behind the Quonset hut
Okay.
and get to it
So long
that
as you get
way.
all 4 corners, because.
Right. Get 4 corners and we'll shim it, get it as level as we can. And showed him the stuff, so he's in the process of getting that today. And it should be in tomorrow. And we'll start selling stickers here next week for 21-22. I completed the performance reports for the guys that work for me. And I will have those meetings and finish them up end of the year, beginning of next year. And as far as the total for the budget, I did a rough estimation, because everybody wants to know, well, how much you're going to spend, how much, what's going to be the average. I went down with the semi-current budget lines, and I went down what I guess is going to be close to being end of year totals. I've got 1 month left for obviously labor, a few weeks left for labor, 1 month left for CD, plastic, solid waste, and glass. I have probably a couple of an electronic container pickup, a tire container pickup, add a few more, and I've added all that in. And when I did all the math, I came out with, we were probably going to come in about $10,000 under the budget total.
400 and, I'm looking at a rate of travel of about 415,000, so you're about 19,000 under.
Yeah,
So not too far.
I think, it just depends on the waste management is a big one. How many containers we use between now and the end of the year. Right now, we're on track to be about the same as what we did in November. So I used that as the totals, that plus a little bit. Those are the two big lines. We did have 2 more loads of brush picked up, so that's going to add $1,000 more onto the brush line to clean it up.
So you avoided the last line in your general info items. What's going on in the next paper?
What a great transition. I actually worked, if you could please write draft on the top of this. I want to give you enough time and not just sit here and read it now. But I did what you asked me, if you can write draft, big letters, draft on it. Basically to summarize a little bit of the background on why we stopped doing mixed paper a long time ago. That also with the pandemic that's going on, and that you all had tasked me to provide a cost estimate of the expense that would have to be added to the transfer station budget if we were to start recycling mixed paper again, Dale. So I did the cost estimate. The assumptions, like anything else, assumptions are important. And you got to make sure you compare apples to apples, so that's why it's very important to get the assumptions right. We would be putting out about 65 tons of mixed paper. That's what we were doing beforehand. 2 to 3 shipments. I made it 3 shipments. It's about 23 tons for each truckload. 42 to 46,000 tons. So 21 to 23 tons per shipment. So I just made it 65 tons of mixed paper would be 3 truckloads. And I listed all of the things that are appropriate in comparison to mixed paper. Then I broke down what would the specific costs be. And the specific costs are labor and cost of material. The labor cost line would be having a person standing right there at that table because of the stricter requirements And the way that material comes in, and I figured 9 months out of the year, that would be a requirement. You know, we could slow down in November, December, January, February, but from March through November time frame-ish, you have to have a person standing there all the time, because people bring it in paper bags, they bring it in recycling containers, they bring it in boxes, and they just put it on the table. And inside those paper bags are glass, everything you can think of. It's the hardest item to QC of the commodities that we take. The requirements have changed dramatically for mixed paper and what's allowed and what's not allowed. You can't put any of the boxes that go into the refrigerator, chipboard boxes, you can't put in there. There's all kinds of changes, it seems like daily. So anyway, I went through the items for what the cost would be, and it's labor, and I figured the labor at a per diem rate to have somebody there 8 hours a day, 4 days a week, 9 months out of the year. In addition to the labor cost, there'd be a cost of, and that includes the cost to load trucks, 2 people, 3 truckloads, 4 hours a load for 2 people, that's 8 hours, that's 24 hours of labor. And I figured that at a part-time rate, the people that drive the machinery and load the trucks. And then the other part of the cost is equipment costs, baling wire, gripples. You require 6 bales. It takes 2 bales to get a ton. It's about 1,100 pounds to bale. 6 baling wire, 6 gripples per bale. So you're looking, then how do you equate it out? I equated it out to the total of 65 tons a year. How many bales would that be? How many baling wires? How many gripples? And put the money in. The bottom line on this draft, if you want me to look at anything further, then let me know. But it's $23,095 to do mixed paper. That would be the yearly cost.
The income portion of that, just so I got that clear in my mind, it's $10 to $15.
$10 a ton.
A ton. Okay, so $10 a ton. So you're $650 worth of income. Is that right? 65 tons,
Right.
$10,
Yeah, it's very low.
$650. So if you're at $23,095, so it's your actual real cost after imported cost is $22,445,
Right.
which is
See, you can't,
you're still $300 a ton in cost to do the deal. Regardless of the income, it's going to cost you $300 a ton to get that
to do
process
it, where it's $110 a ton
just to throw it away.
just to throw it away. That's why so many people are doing exactly that. The plastic's a different story. That's not going to go away. Mixed paper eventually is going to go away.
Yeah.
Even if it costs a little bit more, I would do it. But that you ask for the numbers, and
Yeah.
So are there components in the paper stream that have value? I mean,
there are, the problem is volume. There are components, like some people collect just newspapers. Some people collect office paper, just clean white office paper. But again, then you have to have the volume, and you have to have the QC to do just that. It doesn't do us any good if a paper bag that was supposedly white paper goes in it, and there's 2 Snapple bottles and a couple of beer bottles, and it's crunch, there you go. And when it gets to the mill, it breaks their plant, and then we get taxed.
Or someone puts in Kleenex or toilet paper.
Right, or other nasty things, which they do. I mean, it's extremely hard to QC that station.
Or the-
Well, unfortunately, what's happened in this country is we used to do a good job of
Right.
collecting newspaper,
Magazines.
office paper, you know, collecting plastic separated out by types. And then China came along about not quite 20 years ago, and they bought up, basically would buy up anything, didn't care, and the quality, didn't care how dirty it was or whatever. I mean, they're putting it into places where labor is paid at a fraction of a cent an hour. And so,
Remember when you took glass by color?
well, sure,
Yep.
sure. And so we've learned over the years to just throw it all together and to unlearn that and go back to,
Is
That's another arm in this. If we were to transition back to that, there's a whole education process that would need to go on.
right,
Because we don't do it like other places have it set up, where people come in and they just drop their stuff on the floor, and then they pick it up and put it in a horizontal baler. You know, ours is a little small town, not as high volume, but the way we collect the material, it's not advantageous to QCing that material. Now, for the steel cans, the tin cans, the aluminum cans, and the plastic, it is because the containers are right there, and the people have to dump it in the container, and we look at it. Most places, if you go to like Lee, I think you've been to Lee, most people, you know, you dump it over a wall into a container, and then you come in with a bobcat with a bucket on it that's just wide enough to fit in the container. And the attendants are looking in those containers and be able to grab in with a stick and take out the illegal stuff before it goes in. It's nothing in bags, there's no plastic bags, but plastic and mixed paper are the 2 hardest things to
Sure.
clear. So,
So where I have 2 questions. The things you got stapled to your cardboard bench, and
not allowed items.
those are, yes, this is not cardboard.
Correct.
Is that now paper?
Nope.
Okay, it's neither.
Well, some of it is, some of it's not.
Okay.
The way to look at it is if you put that box in the refrigerator or the freezer, if it's frozen food that comes in it, there's material in that chipboard for moisture
Yeah,
that
it's coated board, and,
Right.
and the coating,
They-
you can remove it from the pulp, but it's a whole nother process beyond
So,
Right.
what's normally done.
okay, that answers that question. The $10 ton,
that's
That
minus
is-
trucking.
that's coming from who? Or what?
NRA bonds.
So they're
They take the trucking fee out.
gonna take all of the paper that we can provide, and then they get.
Well,
put it
depending
into the
upon
market.
what it's classified as.
Right,
If it's classified as mixed paper,
yeah,
then that's probably the lowest grade that there is, and you're going to get the less amount of money for it. If you do office paper or newspaper, it takes longer to get a truckload, obviously, but you're going to get a little more money for that.
and then they deal with marketing it.
And yes, when you call up, you say, I've got mixed paper, or I've got baled newsprint, I've got baled office paper.
Right.
But that's gotta be it's gotta be very QC. It's just like right now, we got dinged on our aluminum cans that we shipped through NRA to Canada,
Right.
okay? And it had probably a half a dozen aluminum cans in there that instead of being painted with the thing, it was a plastic covering that was sealed the can. You couldn't tell from the can. We had no idea. that, you know, it's an aluminum can, it's a beer or soda can. It was one of these gourmet iced tea things with Middle Eastern print on it,
With a sleeve on it. Yeah.
with a sleeve on it that was tight to the can, so there's no way to tell. And we got docked like 40%. Now,
So NRRA is not a profit-based
no,
institution.
no, they're
So-
a logistical control point to,
So this is a snapshot in time, at $10 a ton.
right, right. It's
And
been
it
going
could-
up
It could go
slowly.
up, or it could go down, or go
Correct.
over.
Correct.
Okay,
Before, we were paying $80 a ton to get rid of it.
right.
Now it's up to $10 a ton being paid to you.
Okay.
And that's minus the trucking, wherever it goes.
Right, this is all net, this is
Right.
delivered FOB. So we're talking about $23,000 of an impact.
And that's what people don't understand. You know, I try to use an example all the time, or close to an example. You have 10x things to do, and you have 3 people to do it with.
Right.
Okay? Everybody has a great idea, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. Well, they're trying to manage the people that I manage and the flow that I manage. They're trying to manage the labor to do a specific thing. Well, what other, it's the same thing as we had in the budget committee meeting. Well, can't you take 5% off?
Yeah,
Well, I can take 40% off.
sure.
You tell me what you want taken off before I can put on, or you have to provide more labor to do that specific task. But the people that come up with the ideas and do this and want to do stuff, they're good ideas, and we look at it all the time. And we try to do the best we can economically for the town. I mean, that's the
Well,
whole
I
objective.
think realistically, if we were gonna present this, it would be, does the town of Tuftonboro wanna make a $23,000 annual investment in environmental
Right.
protection?
Right.
Because that's all we're talking about here.
Right.
We're not, it's gonna adversely impact the system that you've put together. But it may be, this society as a whole may decide it's better to spend the money, but it is spending money to do something
Right,
Right,
positive.
right.
It's no different than giving to the charitable institutions. It's
right.
the same idea.
But my only caution is, if it isn't brought up in that context, you can't come and say, do this, without saying, you gotta then take this off the table. Because there's not labor to do them both.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
I think
you
that's
know,
that's why we wanted you to bring this
Get
forward.
get the whole picture.
Because the
Right.
budget you gave us, and that has been approved by the budget committee, is continuing your
Exactly.
method of operation.
That's how I just wanna make sure
Right,
Yeah,
we were all
right.
on the same. And to give the public, and especially the individuals that keep bringing this up, we're not trying to do something bad. We're trying to do the best we can for the town with what we have. And part of that tasking is my management of the labor hours and where it goes against.
and I guess the only other question that remains is where does NRA get rid of this paper? Because if what they're doing is selling the good stuff and sending the rest off to turnkey, I'd like to know, so that when we're having this conversation, I mean, does 100% of the paper that they get in bales go to some recycling paper mill?
I'll give you my opinion from working in this industry in the past.
Okay.
Any stream of material that comes in for recycling always has a certain percentage of stuff that there's no value in.
Right.
Okay.
Ultimately, that goes in the garbage, okay?
Right.
So when we're getting $10 a ton for paper, okay, and the items in there that have value maybe have a value of $60, $70 a ton, let's say, okay? So the $10 a ton we're getting includes revenue from the stuff that they can get revenue, minus their cost of sorting and doing all this kind of stuff, and the tipping fees for getting rid of the rest of it.
Right.
So if we recycle mixed paper, 65 tons a year, maybe 20 tons of it, 25 tons, maybe 40 tons have some value and will actually get recycled. But not everything that's in that stream is going to be
I'm
recycled.
sure it doesn't, and
Right.
I would just ask that, if we could ask an RRA, what percentage of the paper actually is recycled? So that we can speak with authority.
Well, I'd probably, I would be better to go to one of the paper mills and talk directly to the paper mill. What percentage of the material?
Or whoever it is that buys it from
Yeah,
NRA.
whoever's paying the tipping fee to
Yeah.
turnkey, I guess, that's,
Right.
those are the people.
There's another wrinkle that affects this. Less than a year ago, the second largest recycling mill in Jay, Maine, had a major fire. I think a couple of people died.
But they got a lot of money
And
pushed in there.
it set the entire program back, what, 3 years, I was
Right.
told?
Yeah, we expected this drip damage to be a year and a half, 2 years long. And that's what everybody was saying, that's what, we had a presentation at NRA a couple years ago, and that's the representative of the 5 mills. That's what she said. And since then, it has not improved dramatically at all. We did get out of the heavy pain to get rid of it, and back more towards the zero cost. But that took a long time, and it took a year longer than what they thought. Again, their problem is the technology has not improved fast enough to quality control what they put in their processing machinery to keep it from breaking. If a Snapple bottle is in that mixed paper and there's glass chips in there, and that gets in their machine's done, and then they gotta get it fixed. And so their problems are with quality control, where contamination for the longest time for us was, let's say, 2.5% is what the national standard was, could be contaminants in the product. We were better than that. We were much better than that. But there was a lot of people that didn't even come close to that. And when it starts mass destroying machines, then they stop buying. So future-wise, I think it's going to get better, but I think it's going to be very, very, very slow.
Yeah.
I don't think you're looking in near term, a year or two before the numbers start coming back up. That's my opinion.
And you're talking about per diem employee.
That's correct. Per diem employee, $16 an hour.
Yeah.
Loading the trucks, operating the machinery, I use $20 an hour.
Right. But those people are already on board.
Right, but it costs them their time because I bring them in extra. Because we don't want to load trucks with people there.
Right.
Right.
It's an industrial site, you're correct.
Any other questions on, so, please peruse that, go into it a little more detail, and any additions or subtractions that you want me to look at, bring them up. But I know this took a long time, but if you look back at all these, we've had a lot of administrative requirements in the last year.
I got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
I followed up on your thought about the entrance. And I took the liberty of listening to him and listening to Jim Beam, and I met with John Rusquet, vice president of RM Piper. They're the general contractor that rebuilt Sodom Road Bridge. And we walked the entrance and discussed the work that he had recommended, and he'll be submitting some paperwork to us with costs. Here again, Jim and Clay were great to work with. They pointed out some interesting things about tracking and visibility and how many trucks and all that. You and I had a conversation.
You talk about that project being from encumbered funds, and that you're working that, right?
Yes.
You have
Yes.
that. Okay. Good.
Basically, I had a conversation with my co-board member who, do we really need an engineer? What we did is we used the engineer on
Down
staff.
the entrance to the
Yeah.
transfer, well, you have to have an engineer if you don't on the state road.
What I suggested is, we get a problem in the corners, okay? Rather than re-engineering the whole entrance, fix the corners.
Yep.
So if you want to realign the whole intersection, then it's state approvals and all that kind of stuff. If what we want to do, I think, is catch the corners where people are running over it and put some aggregate and some hot top in there, I think we're good without
Sure.
having to run it way up a flagpole.
That's why I represented it to him.
Yeah, and actually,
The next thing is, I think you've done yeoman's work negotiating the outstanding bills.
Right.
I like that. Thank you for your style and your approach. I guess there's still at least one individual that
There's one, it's been
could,
a long time, $270.
would it be appropriate for the selectmen to ask you to contact our lawyer to see if there's any way of getting that money back that's cost effective?
I can do that.
Is it okay with the board?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we need to collect the money, but I think more importantly, we need to, this is a contractor.
Yes, he moved out of town. That's the problem, the issue, because
I'd be telling the rest of the contractors in town that you're going COD.
we had,
This guy.
oh, we've done that.
Yeah.
We've done it.
This is a long-standing,
This is a long standing, this is what started it to begin with, this one.
Got a stiff tip, right?
Right.
No, maybe your recommendation will be that you ask, that we go on record saying, he's not to come back or something like that. So
Right.
Whatever you and the lawyer think are appropriate options,
Well, I
okay?
think the first thing we could do
Is it,
is write it in policy that, because, to be realistic, there's also a couple times where people have come up, you tell them the price of the load, sometimes you can't price the load because there's so much stuff, you gotta unload it. This happened yesterday. What's that? Monday, yesterday. It happened. Person came in with a lot of electronics. Okay? You got a price, I can't give you a price, you got different size TVs, you got computer monitors, you got CD players, and then you got a rug underneath, so we have to unload it. And I said, it's all from Tufton, yes. And I said, you have cash or a check? Yes. Okay, go over to the container, start unloading it, and I'll keep track of it, and at the end, I'll tell you how much it is.
Yep.
Okay, $170. He had $40.
Tate said he had a check.
Yeah, he said he had cash, so I have cash, okay.
Yeah.
So, now what do? You're not gonna load the truck back up.
Yeah.
Then you have to trust the individual that, okay, you're gonna go get the money and bring it right back.
And did they?
Yes, they did. It never ceases to amaze me. Every time I think somebody's not, the person went gone, an hour later, he's back with the cash. But our policy could be, if you owe money, that money has to be paid within, I could develop a policy or something.
Sure.
Has to be developed within, or paid within 30 days, or you get, a warning from the town. If you get two warnings, then you lose the privileges of coming to the facility for a month. And then if the third time, just like we established when I first came on board, if we had belligerent individuals, what's the policy gonna be? And we wrote that. I could do something like that.
Yeah, I just don't want to prolong, I think COD is the best alternative of any of them.
Absolutely.
And if the people, maybe the thing to do is to create a policy where whoever's looking at the load says, it could be as much as $300. Do you have
Right.
that on you?
Right.
Check, cash,
Right.
and then you can leave it in the truck and they can go get the money.
Right. Right.
Rather, because as you said, you trust in the person to come back.
Right. And
Because that person.
inevitably, the downside of that is you spend hours and hours trying to track people down. It's
Yeah,
just-
and that's
it's
time
counterproductive.
wasted.
Right.
And does this person who stiffed us own property in town?
No. Moved to Alton. As far as I know, he's in Alton.
So I think, turn it over to town council, again, to pursue it.
Can ask him. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
say how much would this
It just-
cost? Is it worthwhile?
Well, I think,
Generally, I would have an office manager go to small claims court, but we don't have court anymore because of
Yeah.
COVID.
yeah, but again, you give it to Rick,
Yeah.
let him deal with it. Letter goes out first, whatever the,
Right. Well, the problem is, if you don't know his address, you don't know his whereabouts, then you're kind of stuck.
Then you have to hire an investigator.
Right. And the police don't want to get involved in doing that kind of stuff. That's not really their suit to do that. But I've had, through informal discussions, been able to find people and get them paid off.
Yeah.
This only happened, it's only been, in the 10 years, maybe 3 cases. 2 of the 3, I've gotten the money back. And then after this last one, I don't know, what was it? Maybe beginning of the pandemic, we changed and we went to, there is no more, because of lack of payment from one, which I did get reimbursed finally.
What educated me, Clay, is I was talking to 2 other towns, and they make sure that each year they make an effort. And the mere fact that this is on TV, it's sending the message out
Right.
to the marginal people.
Well, that's 90%.
And that, and they mentioned that's how the town helps the manager.
Right. The word it's amazing how quick the word gets out. That if you're going to go after the individuals, then magically it's not going to occur. So that helps. But I'll ask a question.
I have a couple other things to ask you. We have a letter from Lakes Region Planning to the USDA Solid Waste Project. Have you read the letter?
He helped
he
me.
provided input for it.
Yeah.
He wrote the
Yeah.
input.
Any comments on it?
No, it's good. I think it's good. It's just our support of their organization. We've had a couple meetings that they've helped Tonto, NRA, and LRPC together. The most recent one was Tamworth. And there was probably 40 to 60 attendees that went up to Tamworth. And it caused a lot of discussion about landfill space running out, and the future of MSW regional participation. And some of the benefits from that were that towns can now go to NRA, and when it comes time to doing contracts with Waste Management or who are some of the other vendors, but copies of their contracts, of what they're paying to get rid of material, can be made available. You know, so when you go in to negotiate for a contract with that company, you already know
What the other guys are
what
paying.
the other guys are paying, and you don't get mission creep. You know, you don't get creep here, and because there's creep here, then there's creep up here, and it gives the company more power than it does the town. So different items like that, talking about in the future, maybe sometime in the future, having one township collect certain things. You know, where our facility may take to Tamworth aluminum cans. They do all aluminum cans. We do all cardboard. Somebody else does all plastic. If somebody has a horizontal baler, that would be better for plastics. So you take the plastics there, they bring their aluminum cans here.
It's like we do with glass.
Right.
Yep.
And so that's what LRPC and NRA both do. And so our support of that organization, plus they also do the household hazardous waste program, which is good. So, you know, I put my support behind them. But yeah, I think that it's good to go. That's not, we also do the commitment letter to the hazardous waste program. That already went, they already have that, so.
And the last question I have is, we'll be making a decision today on IT,
Okay,
and
well, I still need a computer.
Well, we've read your letter.
Okay.
You've always been very kind but straightforward. I was there twice when you tried to call. To my knowledge, has the guy ever returned your phone call?
Oh, the IT?
Yes.
No, I've never tried calling John. Is that his name, John?
No. Well,
I've had no contact with him.
last week I was here when someone in the office spoke to him, and I overheard the conversation, and he needed to go to the fire department and introduce himself to them, and also introduce himself to you. And as of this morning, no one has contacted you, is that correct?
That's correct. I think the reason behind
Excuse
that.
me for putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, I think the reason behind that is, I don't need, my needs are not like the town office needs as far as the computers and the power and the complexity. I just need a basic CPU. And he really doesn't even have to come and, you know, all I need to do is get a new CPU in there. Because I don't have near the capability that the town office has. It's just, I have to have the programs where I can open up the attachments and I can store a lot of matrix Excel spreadsheets.
Well,
Because that's what provides.
you do have some special needs,
Right,
because you're there 4 days a week, and the only window you have to talk to the rest of the world
right,
is on Tuesday and Wednesday,
right,
because they aren't around on weekends.
yeah. I mean, I can call, is this guy work for us now?
Currently.
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
Today's the day when we decide what company.
Yeah, I have no, I think it'd be very easy for him and I to.
Yeah, he's working
Okay.
until the end of the month. I have to disagree with the chairman that we aren't going to decide today who's going to be
Okay.
next year. 'Cause
Okay.
I think we need to interview some people.
Right. But I've heard, I mean, just me personally, I've heard nothing but good things about him, so. But I think there was a, you know, I think that was just an issue where he understood what my needs are and there was no real need and coming out to the station, so.
Thank you for being conciliatory.
Okay.
The other thing is, you want to talk about the,
I don't know if they're ready.
Holidays,
I
Yeah.
gave you guys the holiday list.
is there a time limit pressure on this? I mean, I'd like to present it to the guys out there.
yeah, we don't need to act until the last meeting of the year.
Yes.
Maybe if you get it back to me by the 28th.
I'll get back
maybe?
tomorrow. I'll get back tomorrow. What's tomorrow? I'll get back by Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'll bring it in with a weekly wrap up.
Okay.
But yeah, what I like to do is I like to pass this to them so they can.
And if you want to make adjustments, just let me know and I'll
Right.
adjust it for the selection.
The other thing is, I would like to thank you guys very much for, 10 years of 10 years of support and service, and I am going to give you my letter
Yes.
for retirement, and hopefully I put down there town meeting time frame, and that would give enough time to find a replacement.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna review a letter, knowing that this was coming in, we're gonna review a letter that's gonna go into the paper, looking
I did
Yeah.
at
it.
the replacement.
Yeah,
And it is
and you're
like-
familiar with that because you had a hand in writing that.
Right.
Advertisement,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
We already met.
Yeah,
Let's
right.
vote them.
So.
Yep.
That was mostly for the television.
But,
And as I said yesterday to you, and I'll say it again to my fellow selectmen, in a perfect world, you'd be involved in the interviewing process when we get candidates, and then you'd be involved for a very short period of time, a week, let's say, of transition.
mhm.
You mentioned being available on an ongoing basis. I'd like to, as I said yesterday, I'd like to avoid that for your sake, just because if you're gonna retire,
Right.
enjoy it.
Right.
You should be on call
Right.
for a year. So
Well-
I think that even if we're 2 weeks of transition, I think that's enough time for somebody to get their feet on the ground.
Right.
Depending on who you hire.
Right.
obviously.
I think you're used to seeing things a certain way, and
Yeah.
that's gonna take a little time to learn. There are a lot of requirements administratively out there, and it's gonna take a while for anybody to pick up on what those requirements
Right,
are.
and there's certification requirements as well, so,
Right.
and that's gonna take a little bit of time.
Again, thank you for all
Thank
the
you,
support.
We all get out of the house for a couple of days a week.
Okay, be safe, my
All
friend.
right.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks, Clay.
Signature file. The first item on top is the letter to rural development, USDA, Lakes Region USDA Solid Waste Project. The one-
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All those in-
Just one signature.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I guess I don't get an answer to that.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Is it only one signature?
No, 3.
All right.
The next item is the regulations for evacuations in and management of town streets and public right-of-way.
Can you or Priscilla jump up on me to sign some people?
We've already voted to adopt that, we just need to sign it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know that we want to vote to sign it.
No.
And it says Board of Selectmen Chairman.
Yep. So it needs to be witnessed by the town clerk. Is that correct or not?
Yes,
Okay, so maybe you want to sign.
She's on her way.
Oh, she's coming up? Okay, great.
There's a few of them that need her.
Health Trust Amendment, Flex, benefits
move
plan.
approval.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's just a change of language in that
Motion
health
passes.
savings account.
It's the chair.
Yep.
Today's
And I think that,
today's
because
the
we're
14th.
changing the law, is that right? Yeah.
Well, changing the IRS rule is a law, but I guess the rule is a law.
And we did do the paperwork for me to be noted. So they don't have to do.
Okay. Lakes Region Planning, the Humane Society, town contract for animal shelter service.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded as the town representative. There. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. The next is the Town Hall Cemetery, the right of burial.
I'll move approval.
This is Joanne and Mark Hoover, Huyler.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Another right of burial is for Donald and Elaine Littlefield.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Hi, Jen.
Motion passes 3-0.
How's it?
Jen?
Yes. Over here?
Do I need to affirm?
I
or
guess.
swear?
Whatever you say.
Just one spot. There you go. Oh, thank you. Just put it on the red note. We'll do anything to get out of the office, won't we?
You bet, it's been busy.
Isn't there a couple of them that we?
How's your meeting been?
Great.
Good.
The state said 8 to 10 weeks for me to be a notary, and that's before pandemic.
Really?
But, so you've got your oar on there?
We did all the paperwork.
Yeah. Well, we can't,
Can't-
all you can do is get in line,
That's
so.
right.
Good. Thank you.
There's a budget tomorrow.
No,
No?
Wednesday
No,
night.
Wednesday,
Wednesday. Okay.
6:30.
So while you get a second, Bill, I wasn't aware that there was a meeting for the planning board on this Thursday night on the 17th. I thought Jennifer Leanne said the next one was gonna be on January. I haven't,
She talked about that at the meeting, but we
Yeah.
have a proposal to deal with.
Oh,
with
okay.
respect to doing the master plan.
all
And we're
right,
gonna have that for this meeting this week, so we can get it moving forward.
and we're all done with day 4 for the time being,
Thank you,
right?
Jen. Sure.
Yes, yep.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So, I mean, they may have decided not to have it, but that is. the way
Well,
we
if
like
she
to
posts
play
it, then you'll have it. I haven't looked that
Yep.
far ahead.
Yep. So there aren't any site plan reviews or, you know, any applications coming before the planning board, but we do have a little housekeeping business to do.
Okay, we're all set with signature items. Next are action items. IT bids. Anybody want to be heard on that?
Yeah, I guess we all got the list. I read all the, or I didn't read all the contracts, but I read all of the pertinent information. And although we know John from Cybertron, I think it would be interesting to have a representative from Lakes Region, a representative from ANS Networks, and one from Stellar Networks come in. They're all four of them are within a couple $100 of one another, so I don't see price as the objective, more service and availability. And I did have Kathy call, hopefully she's called,
I did.
Yep.
for recommendations, so.
You should have a copy of her report in there someplace.
If not, get one, I always bring an extra.
Bill, did you mention something about doing something this Friday in a work session?
I said, if we want to have a work session, I'm fine, except I have a dentist appointment at 9:15, so it would have to be a little bit later. But
And I have on Friday, I have a Herbert Trust meeting at 11,
Okay.
so that's gonna come.
so we could do it in the afternoon, I suppose.
For interviews? What are you talking for?
I'm flexible whenever you guys want to get
What
into
is
it.
this, what is this meeting gonna do, Jim?
We interview the
Oh,
representatives.
okay.
Is there another day you want to do it on Thursday? I'm here to accommodate you gentlemen.
Electrician coming.
Hmm?
How busy are we next Monday? Is that a big day?
Next Monday is,
You're off Monday.
it's not a meeting day, but we could have a work session.
Yep.
I mean,
If
that
you
would be
want.
a better day for me,
Yep.
I think,
Okay.
if you guys wouldn't mind.
Sure.
And we can do it at 10 o'clock. I don't care what time it is, we can do it. As long as it's
To
9
do,
o'clock.
yep,
or
So
on.
do you want me to book,
yep.
Sure.
do you want Cybertron to come in or just the other three?
Cybertron's the guy who's doing it now, right?
Right. I mean, we could have him in and ask him. I honestly don't know. I'm fine with John, but if you guys want to talk to him about anything, Lloyd seemed to have some issues. And whether or not you want to address those with him, I guess I would. I mean, I can't imagine making this a real protracted event.
Right.
Right.
So, just saying.
I'll go with whatever you guys want, so. No, it's obvious that, I like the idea that we've been slowly moving in the last few years to doing more and more with computers and being proactive. So.
Right.
Just like a new car, right?
Yes.
Now, you know you've got.
What a way to get it, though.
So you'll notice this meeting, right?
Yep.
For next Monday?
Work session for next
You
Monday.
want a work session
Yeah.
next Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Am I-
let's give them all 15 or 20 minutes and let's make a decision how about that.
Yep,
That's cool.
yep.
And then that's off the table.
Yes.
Yep.
Do you just want the three or do you want John to?
I guess we're gonna have, if we're gonna make a decision, we need to give John an opportunity.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Monday, and you want to start at 10? Is that
9,
what I'm hearing? 9?
yeah.
That's fine.
And do you want it here or down at the townhouse? Townhouse.
I think we can do it down there.
We can do
Sure.
it down there, yeah.
Because we're having one at a time, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. 9 a.m.
And it's contract negotiations, so it's not filmed.
Okay.
You know, it's not an open meeting.
It's not an open meeting?
I'm sorry.
No,
When you did this with the police station and the people to show up, and I understand the people competing against each other, you just said they're only within a couple $100 of each other. Now we're discussing their qualifications of what they can actually do for us.
right.
So that would be on a different level.
That's still a contractual agreement.
Well, we should know
Contracts
what
aren't
the
open.
town, we want to know what what we're getting. I mean, it's,
Right.
at some point, I guess I don't understand the fine line. I'm trying to
Okay, elections
understand.
have consequences. So all language in a contract is part of the contract. So whether it's service or whether it's money. And so that's all exempt from public information until we make a decision. Once we've made a decision, it's based upon our best estimate of what the town needs and wants.
Yes.
And if there's disagreement, because somebody thinks we should have hired company C instead of company B, well, who's up next? You? Fire Lloyd Wood next time there's an election. That's all you can do. It's the best you can do.
Just on a kind of a slide remark, the next person you choose, make sure you can fix your computer remotely from the office to your house. And
And that's,
they can do
that's
that.
helpful. It really is.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So it'll be a non-public.
So it'll be
space.
non-public, right?
Okay. Due to reputation?
Yes.
No, it's contract negotiation.
Yeah, contract negotiation.
Yeah, I think there's a thing for that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Oh,
It's my understanding that we're holding off on the signing the holiday schedule for both the town and the transfer station.
Well, yeah, we're gonna,
Yep.
I'm just giving you options.
yeah. So
I
this
think-
this is, you brought it forward, we need to sign it on the 28th.
Right.
That's fine.
Right.
I just want you guys to see it. And I spoke, as far as the town office one, I did speak to the small group
Yeah.
on what they thought was
Yeah.
best.
Is that-
That's what came out of it.
Well,
Yeah, I
what
know.
matters is what we think, but she didn't talk to us, but that's okay.
Well, that's why it's here. For you guys
Do we have representation the day before Christmas? Is there a need to have someone there? And was there another, I gotta look at it, I guess. Was
to- That's why it's being presented to
Year's
you
Eve.
to see what you would want, but
Yeah.
that's a suggestion.
Yeah. Well,
It's 12 holidays, as I remember on the page.
yeah,
So
Yeah,
I think
it
that
is.
Historically, we've had 12 holidays for our employees.
right.
Yep.
And that schedule is consistent with what we're doing this year, right?
Yes.
I mean, the days move around a little bit, so sometimes you're gonna have the day before is the holiday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When the holiday runs on a Saturday, you get the day before. If it runs on a Sunday, you usually get the day after, is how they do it. But when you have that one extra day, that is a floater
Yep.
out of the 12. You have 11 set ones and then one floater.
The next thing under action items is the budget 4195 cemetery. Do we want to do that now?
Sure. Is that,
And there's a,
Sue submitted it, right?
Sue has an attached letter.
Okay.
Diane wanted to bring to your attention that she was asking that the legal line that you voted on already for cemetery be up from 5 to 750.
Therefore, we suggest increasing our legal needs to 7.
I have a copy of that, and I have 750 2021 department head request on my copy.
I don't have my,
I don't have mine here, but
so is that in the selectmen's budget, Roy?
That is out of my folder.
So it was already done.
See, it was already 750.
Yeah.
If the math adds up correctly.
Yeah, sure.
right.
Changed something, but we
Yeah.
didn't change.
So Yeah, the only thing we adjusted from what Diane presented was ours, right? So,
Okay, I'm gonna move the cemetery budget 4195 for $29,961.
and I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
I'm playing phone tag with,
Tyler,
yeah,
Tyler Phillips.
Tyler, right. So I haven't got a number, but I'm gonna say, God, I'm gonna get this one too. I mean, his emails back and forth on this have suggested a cost of around $190,000 for the project.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, if we look at our, if we look at our encumbered funds list, it does show us how much we spent this year on permitting. So I guess the long and short of it is, do you want, do you want me to throw a number at you for the permitting, or do you want me to throw it at you next Monday when hopefully I've gotten all the time?
I'd say next week, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also had a conversation with Tyler Phillips, reference the boat launch. And I spoke to him on 3 things. We discussed the best strategy to use going forward with New Hampshire DES concerning the Union Wharf project. I shared with him the information concerning possible repairs to 19 Mile Bay boat launch. He'll take a look at it and be in contact with you and have a conversation with you.
Better than the last contact.
Yeah. I then discussed switching our attention to Lake Road project, and he had some thoughts on that and is willing to meet with us about it. I also asked him to go with me and check out the wetland area opposite the new library. I have some questions about that, and he'd be willing to do that with me. So those are the 3
I don't want
things.
to spend a lot, I mean, this is just me speaking, obviously.
Yes,
But I don't want to spend a lot of money across the street from the library.
I was not authorized to spend any money, it's just I was asking him to go with me. No,
Alright.
it's, I'm one selectman, I have no power that way, only the 3 of us do, so.
I mean, I've got, I don't know how your Monday looks, but would have been Tyler in on Monday as well.
That'd be fine with me.
Can we
Yep.
contact Tyler and see if he can come in Monday around 11? And we'll go public. Yeah. So that would sort out docks and bridges,
Yes,
which leaves us only with buildings.
it wraps.
Only buildings.
Makes it a lot easier for you getting to the budget committee. Anything else under selectmen's updates? And then I'll go through the administrative secretary's updates.
We've got a budget meeting on Wednesday, I guess. And for the rest of what we have here.
Can I ask a question about Monday?
Sure.
So am I just doing an agenda just for the interviews and for Tyler?
Right.
That's it?
Yes.
Well, right, so the interviews are non-public.
Right.
Tyler
right.
is public,
Yeah.
right,
Okay.
so far.
Yeah. I need to do that.
I seem to keep adding.
We may need to pack a lunch for Monday, who knows?
Hopefully.
Under,
Can I request them to separate the library out before they come in for the interview? Would that be okay with you guys?
Yes,
yes,
yep,
let's go over your administrative updates, what you need for answers, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead, start at the top. I had requested that the snowplow policy be reviewed only because it says for us to review it each year. I have no changes.
Do we need to enact that every year? I mean, I thought we didn't rescind it.
No, it's just, it says that we will review it each fall.
All right.
And which one is it? I gave you two. I don't know which one.
Okay, he submitted two things. One is information on what we have for equipment and
Right.
basically
Okay.
how he does things. The other is the snow policy.
The one that's signed,
Yes,
Yes.
is policy.
yes. The other is background information, so.
Right, and I haven't heard that Jim needs that policy changed. And
When I asked him about it, he said no, he was happy with it.
So, I guess from my position, I've reviewed it.
yep. I think it looks fine to me. As far as I know, we're working to that policy, and as far as I know, we're not having any significant issues.
No?
That's not to say that a particular storm or something isn't gonna come up, but this is,
Yeah.
that's how the work in general is structured.
Okay. The second item is we reviewed the LRPC letter.
Yep,
Is it fine the way it is, in your opinions?
Yes,
Clay's the one who added
yeah, we attached the deadline date for the next coming year. On the IT bids,
That's a deadline in LRPC. Are those two connected?
it. No.
Okay,
The
what,
deadline paperwork is from New Hampshire Municipal Association. It's
Okay.
letting you know when things are due.
yes,
Oh,
for traditional
For
town meeting.
hearings and that type of thing.
yes.
And we can talk about Monday if you want, but there is one, January 7th. If it is the last day to post and publish notice of first hearing or proposed adoption or amendment of zoning ordinances. And if we have to do that as a select board, or is that?
That's planning board.
Right, so I don't have to do-
And the notice should be going in the paper. The hearing is gonna be at our first meeting in January, which is actually before the 7th.
So
So-
it should be in by like the 25th.
Right,
Right.
right.
And that's up to Leanne.
That's correct.
Great.
Yep.
That's the biggest one. And then there's one that says.
So one of the things with respect to town meeting that I think is an open question, I believe our videographer sort of raised it before, is where things go this year. And I think that's a question that the legislature has to deal with.
yeah.
There's certainly a reasonable possibility we're still going to be in a pandemic issue in March, but we don't have the authority to move our meeting beyond that. That's something that the legislature has to deal with, and I'm hopeful that once they get together at the beginning of January, they'll provide some flexibility there, push it out 2-3 months, whatever it is that, if that needs to happen, that we can do it by law.
The other one is first day to hold a public hearing on bond or note issue over 100,000. That has to be in the paper by 12/25 if that's going to be an issue.
What?
January 8th.
We have to notice it by 12/25? No, when did that?
It has to be noticed by the 8th of January, right?
Well, it said to hold a public hearing on bonds, notice of time, place, and subject of hearing must be published in the newspaper in general circulation in at least 7 days before the hearing. And that's what I'm asking you. If you're not having the hearing January 8th, we're fine. But if you're gonna have a hearing January 8th, then we must be added by 12/25.
Right. but if you go further in, there's a last day when the bond hearing can be held,
Right.
Right.
It's a pro in terms of-
which is,
Right.
it's,
19th, I think. I'm just trying to stay on top of this, because with the newspaper being once a week, you really have to notice
Yep.
that 3 weeks, I have to tell them 3 weeks
Right.
before. Isn't that the only paper for the money hearing?
No, it's, unless it changed everything.
so, yeah, last day for the budget hearing for the first budget hearing is February 12th.
Yeah.
Right.
So, February 5th is notice date for that.
I just didn't know, because it's over 100,000, we don't know what we're doing with the police yet.
Right, so, and, so
So
if,
February 22nd is the last day to hold a public hearing on bond
Or
and road
notes,
issue.
right.
Yeah.
so,
Good.
so that's the one that basically by the beginning of February, we need to figure out whether there's a likelihood that we're gonna wanna borrow money.
Okay.
And we need to, if there's a possibility, then we need to hold a hearing, even if we're not sure we're gonna do it, just so that,
Covered.
the base is covered.
All right, so I don't have to worry about that. I just wanted to make sure, because don't.
Thank you
miss
for-
these dates.
And keep bringing them up, because occasionally those things slip by and we miss something, and then it ties our
It's
hands.
just, it gets a little confusing when you
Oh, yeah.
start having
Yep.
to do a couple of weeks and the
Right.
newspaper having to have
Right.
the deadline by Friday before.
All right.
Okay, so we're all good for January, then I don't have to do anything.
Well, you may do something, but you
We're fine for December.
only, we'll let you know.
Okay.
Right. So,
Ah,
I guess January is a date if we decide we want to extend voting hours,
Right.
but I don't know that we
I don't know if that accomplishes what we need to do.
would,
though.
no.
All right, are we up to IT? Or where are
We're
we?
past IT, because we already discussed that. We're at, did you guys review Clay's ad?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think, my suggestion is we shorten it up considerably to put it in the paper, though. I mean,
Okay.
we're looking for a,
This is what Clay suggested, so I'm bringing it to you.
All right. Yep, yeah.
yeah,
You want to work on that?
I mean, I would be pretty brutal if I was working on it, but I mean.
Well, for a want ad, which is what this is,
Right,
you know, the title and some bullet points as it relates to
Okay.
requirements. And-
I can
and-
shorten it up.
Yeah,
yeah,
and,
just like transfer station supervisor, full-time employment, benefits, 36 hours a week,
See me for the full description.
yeah.
yeah,
And then, yeah, get a hold of us for the full description.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what he gets into is part of his description of
Yeah,
what he's supposed to do.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, to continue, we've already discussed holiday schedule, we'll make a decision later. And then on update on budgets, we have financials that will be completed once we get an IT person. Government building is waiting for the painting quote and the cupola quote. Jack has been calling and leaving messages. Docks and bridges is on us.
yeah.
Right.
And then there's 3 confidential items.
All right.
Under correspondence, is update from Chief Thompson, update from Clay, ZBA notice, some dredge and fill wetland permits, library information, Divine Element email offering help with any bond counsel services, butter notification for a shoreline permit, and 2 DES files on permit complaints. Going back to Selectmen's update, I'll preface this by, this has been a strange year, and I think our employees have been exemplary. First of all, would it be appropriate to send out to Diane and ask her to do an inventory and remind those people to use up their vacation time that can't be added on to next year, or to,
Yeah, I don't know.
if they wanted to donate to the bank? And then I have another question is, could we, I know something's happened similar to this years ago with UNH. They gave an extra 2 months for all the employees to use up their accrued time. I just tossed that out as, what does the board think about this whole issue?
Is it an issue?
I don't know.
I don't either, and I'm not averse to the idea of extending the use out through the winter, just premised on the COVID business.
Yep.
But I have to agree with Bill, I don't know if it's an issue at all.
If it's an issue, then it would warrant our thinking about discussing and potentially extending it, but
I know it's only an issue in one circumstance, but we've already
Address
addressed
that,
that.
yes.
It would be probably easier for some to figure out what we've done and
Yep.
do it for everybody.
Could we make a request for Diane to do an audit to make sure no one's,
Yeah, that sounds good. Stop it.
great? I think that's reasonable.
Or we can have Kathy just tell her to
I
put
can
something
do
together.
that.
Yep.
I've done correspondence, Selectmen's updates. Do you have any updates, Bill?
Just mention again that that the planning board is meeting on Thursday. No active applications. We will, hopefully be entertaining the proposal for master plan update from the new consultant. I don't think I have anything else.
Have we jogged your memory on anything? You have a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, the only thing that was confusing me, hopefully one of you guys is tracking it, probably Lloyd more than you,
Yep.
are all these email train from the grant writer, which I mentioned before the meeting opened, that everything they get from Tufton goes into the junk pile, not by my choosing. So I've had a difficult time trying to recreate what her path is that she's working. I don't know if you've got a firmer grasp on that than I do.
When I asked what project she was going to work on and how much we were going to, she was going to charge us, quote, she only works on those things that she knows she can get us.
No, you're talking about the North Country Village.
No.
No.
That's about
The grant writer.
USDA.
USD, okay.
What's,
Well, that grants USDA also, but, so that's why I was confused.
oh,
But, yeah,
Are
you're
you
talking
talking about the thing that
maybe I am
our
talking
contractor's working on?
I thought I was talking about the police department.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you get any update from Phil?
No, I did, I sent him an email asking him to give me an update that we were meeting today. I haven't heard anything other than he did email me last week saying that they wanted, when I posted it, where I posted it, and I sent that to him the day he gave it to me.
Yeah,
So, that's about as far as it's gotten.
Well, if you could follow up with them at your convenience, that'd be great.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it'll all
I
be-
already did this
Okay.
morning. So. He just hasn't gotten back to me yet.
everything will be revealed.
Yep.
Yep.
Anything else under correspondence, Selectmen's business, action items?
Nope.
I'm all ready for other business, public. Hi, sir, go ahead.
Okay, I got 3 items. Okay, we're all familiar with the roundabout down on 25 and 171, and Chip was talking about, well, the entrance to the transfer station, about putting some aggregate down so we don't keep wearing away the edges when people turn in. But if you're coming out of Ossipee, working your way towards Wilboro, you come in to the roundabout, and then you take an immediate right, you'll find there's an extension of cement and a curbstone, literally, so that you can't cut the corner short, otherwise you go over the curbstone. If that was kind of built under our town instead of involving the state on that little corner, as far as going into the transfer station, it was just an idea and a suggestion. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep, yes.
Okay, fine. Job for the transfer station. I don't know, well, when I was there, eventually, I had to go through some of the state classes and schools in order to get certified in order to run the transfer station. I don't know if that's gonna be a requirement of a person coming in.
It is.
And last but not least, the Chip's favorite, could we possibly, and I don't have to be there, maybe we would just tag Mr. Cordelli to have him come in and say, hi, how's it going? And by the way, what are you doing at the State House? Well, I mean, because we don't know, unless we request him to come down, we don't know what the hell's going on. Thank you for listening.
You're welcome.
That's all I got.
Okay. Is there any reason for us to go into non-public to discuss any of these things?
Not that I'm aware of.
I have one more question after you decide that.
There was only, no, I'll save it for our Selectmen Secretary, just ask her the question.
You
So,
have- Go ahead.
I received an email that the town of Meredith sent me. They're compiling information from other lake towns on two topics, island residents and town-owned docks. I have already emailed the fire department to see if they could give me some insight on the town-owned docks. But they want to know, one, what services does the town provide to the town island residents? And two, can you provide details about the town-owned docks, like number of parking spots, size, number of docks, bathrooms, etc.? I don't know, I'm asking.
Well,
So I did ask Chief to fill me in what he knows.
Yeah.
well, we provide fire protection, boats,
Medical services.
medical services with EMTs on the boats.
We also inspect permits for the state.
Yeah, and we do solid waste,
Do Island Day.
Island Day. We're
Okay.
overly nice to them for whatever reason. I guess it's just because we're nice people.
We have 2 boat launches on the Big Lake.
We have 3, don't
Well, we have 2 improved launches,
we? Right,
Lake Road and at 19 Mile Bay.
right,
We have 2 unimproved launches down on Tuftsboro Neck.
right.
Yeah, rights away.
And I guess the chief would, or the fire chief would let you know how many parking spaces there are for boats on the 19 Mile Pier.
If he doesn't know, I can check with the police chief, he
Right.
should know.
And
Yeah.
also on the Lake Road Bulkhead
There's also Melvin Wharf.
and Melvin Wharf. So 3 locations.
Yep.
We-
Jack might be able to help you there because he
They will be
he puts the
included.
thermolators out.
I'm sorry.
He puts the bubblers out.
Any full-time residents on islands will be included in it on broadband initiative.
I don't think there's any current people living year-round on an island. I think the
There
last
are
one
no
drowned
people living-
in a motorcycle.
I don't feel that there are any people living full-time on the island. However, I think 3 different properties are claiming that as their permanent resident,
Yes.
which throws a real monkey wrench into our participation in the co-op's
Yep.
broadband bid, so. we would have to provide broadband access to those 3 houses, which would cost a little bit of money.
Right.
Okay. Well, I'll check with everybody else too. I
Yep.
just didn't know if you had any answer. Okay.
Oh, and we also allow septic system improvements to be put on town-owned island property
Right.
on Cow Island.
On an individual basis.
Yeah. God, we go on and on. We just,
Yeah,
we do the milfoil thing, all kinds of lake stuff.
yep.
Far more than Meredith does.
Anything else, Kathy, you need?
That was it. I'm sorry.
All right, I'm gonna move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
See you.